Hello everyone, welcome to Blue Dragon Universe. This is the Blue Dragon Actual YouTube channel. So today we are going to cover a conceptual video that is understanding investment income. And this is a concept that is really misunderstood. Very few people have clarity even in at the senior level. And this is something that, if you play with this concept, it's very easy to understand. But if you do not know the reality behind this concept, is very easily misunderstood. So whenever I have asked this question in an interview, what do you mean by investment income? Once again, 99.9% people scoring, 85% in SP2 and CM1 has come up with wrong answers. So that is the reality of this. So today we are going to understand why it is so misunderstood, what is the reason behind that, and how you can, remember this investment income so that this is very easily understood. Now, if I ask investment income, people will say, "Oh, investment income, it is you are earning some interest over something, and that is the investment income." So, some interest is okay, but over what? That is not clear to most of the people. And I believe that if you pause this video right now, and if you want to write whatever in the comment section that what do you think investment income, right? And at the maybe at the end of the video, match that with whatever I have written and what is really happening in the investment income section. So moving on, let us go here. So introduction, and just to introduce, like if you are seeing this video for the first time, we are a digital coaching center, which you can see that bluedragonuniverse.in, right? So you can visit this other than the actual papers. We basically follow the IFOA and II syllabus, which is CMO season. We have not created anything related to SOA. So SOA people would not find help there. But yeah, we are maybe in future we're going to create something on that as well. But the our credit is creating practical courses which are related to real life work, which is something like IFRS 17. That is, this is done every month. Then Sparkle One, which is a complete course, you can purchase that. IFRS 17 is a live workshop where and I'll be taking you through the nitty-gritties of IFRS 17. So it is a very relevant concept. IFRS 17 is followed in 95% of the countries and will be followed in 95% of the countries in the world. And that is where you can, this course will help you get a job. An actual inner engineering, this is one of its course kind, and it is once again it is held every month, and you can register. February month is already over, but then the month March you can have the registration. And IFRS 17 actual engineering, these are live courses. It will be taught to you live, and then IFRS 17 is 7 days course conducted from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. every day for those 7 days. And actual inner engineering, once again, it is it teaches you about the actual software in life insurance, how life insurance works. And if you're struggling to get yourself placed in life insurance, like if you have scored those marks but struggling to clear actual interviews in life insurance domain, then Sparkle One is the course for you. This is a fully recorded course, so there is no live classes for this, but this will clear your concept, something like now we are doing, and we'll get inside life insurance company if you're interested in that. So, I mean, the reason for introducing this slide is to make everyone aware that these courses do exist. If you are just studying papers, because these days many people are becoming qualified actually because the level of exam has gone down and there will be competition at that zone as well, that area as well. I am lucky that I'm already at a pretty senior level in a company and I don't have to face the competition. But those who are starting out right now, because the institute has promoted the actually to class to school students and also gone into MCQ based method, right? Although IFO is now moving back to sort of offline exam, but because IAI is moving into MCQ based method, SOA already has that MCQ based method, and these days people are just taking shortcut and writing exams like that and also getting qualified. And there is nothing wrong in that. I'm not saying there is anything wrong. If you have the opportunity, why you do not take it, right? And this exam, the lower exams are conducted 4 times a year by II. So all of this contributing to very quick actuaries. The system is making you faster actuaries. I've already made a video on that, and so that is where The real distinction will come from what other thing you know, and that may be a software skill like understanding actual software. Earlier, you used to learn that during job, but these days, I think it will be difficult for you to do that. And then also, if you already know about that, if you can, explain something about that while in the job interview, if you can put that in the CV, that will help you. Same goes for IFRS 17, right? You have to learn that on the job, but if you understand the concept before, like in a job interview, that can also help, right? So these are monthly courses conducted every month. Every month is already over, but then IFRS 17 actual engineering, you should be, and if you're interested, then you can register by visiting this website like bluedragonuniverse.in, and then there will be a segment for courses, and you can figure that out. Anyone with common sense can, right? The reason I'm mentioning this also is because these days there are a couple of YouTube channel on Actuary as well, and all they are doing is what they are doing in my time as well. They are doing podcast. They are kind of inviting qualified actuaries and asking them how is the actual profession, what is the salary, which are age-old thing, and everyone says the same thing. And in fact, once I did a podcast with Romit, the actual guy, and he has his own YouTube channel as well. And you could see that the three videos, if you actually see those videos, and people who are coming to this podcast are kind of saying all of this thing, same thing, right? So it's they're just there's a clutter of videos of qualified people who are very young, right? Who have not seen the industry, who have not even led a department or a team. They are coming and giving gyans on actually, and all actual channels are kind of doing the same thing because they cannot create videos on knowledge because that is where they themselves do not have the knowledge, and that is the unfortunate truth. That is why till now there is not a single YouTube channel in single actual channel in YouTube which actually teaches concept. There's not a single one. We are the only one. I started this YouTube channel in 2023 and 2024 too, actually, I believe. And then 2 years later, right? Sorry, I started in 2023, June. 2 years, almost 1.5 years have passed, and then still, even now, there is no one who is creating conceptual videos. That is the sad reality of actual industry. So many fellows, so many people doing well in their job, and those who can, they are not willing to share their knowledge, and those who can't, but they are just milking people by inviting them to the podcast. So that is how it works these days, sadly. But yeah, without the let us move on to the real concept, reality of reserve. So first we have to understand, to understand investment income, what is reserve. And reserve is a mathematical concept, right? It does not exist in physically, it does not exist, right? It is a mathematical concept. It represents liability for insurer, and actuaries are the owner of reserve. Actuary is the owner of liability. So if you are going to become an actuary, then this is the same thing that you are going to kind of work on. And because it is a mathematical concept, it does not exist physically. So we actually purchase asset or invest in bonds, corporate bond, government bonds, infrastructure bonds. Some bit might be in equity as well, and we held those asset against the mathematical reserve. So if we mathematically calculate the number to be say $2,000, right, and then we keep asset of $2,000 separately into some bonds, corporate bonds. There are regulation behind it which asset class you can choose, but then that is how we kind of held uh, asset against the reserve, right? So that asset creates investment income. That is the first thing, right? And that asset will earn some yield, coupons, right? For bond, it will earn some coupons, and that will generate some income, right? So that asset is generating investment income, right? So usually, this concept that reserve is a mathematical concept, that itself is very difficult for many people to understand, that reserve does not exist physically, but in real life reserve does not exist, just a mathematical number, and we keep asset against that mathematical number, right? Which exist in physically, like the asset exists physically, and then that asset generate investment income, right? So that is how investment income is generated, but that is not the whole truth. There is something else as well, right? And that is where we are going to move in. So this is the formula for profit of the year. Probably you have seen this formula in CM1, right, or even in SP2, or if you are working, you have probably seen this formula. So profit for the year is given by this equation: premium plus investment income. Now everyone I have interviewed, they are able to recollect this in, this equation: premium plus investment income minus expense minus benefit outgoes minus change in reserves. This is something, most people are able to recollect this, right? And a premium is very easy to understand because you can physically see that, right? It is, you are paying the premium, right? But then investment income is something that you do not physically see, and that is why, how this investment income is generated is beyond the knowledge of, or the beyond, the people cannot visualize that, right? Expense, similarly, you can see that benefit outgoes is the sum assured, a surrender benefit. You see that death benefit, maturity benefit. You see that change in reserve. Once again, to understand the concept that change in reserve is reserve, which is T minus one. T minus one is basically the beginning of the year, and reserve T is at the end of the year, right? Usually we determine, or we submit the report to the regulator yearly, but internally you can do that calculation quarterly as well. That is why I mentioned as T minus one and T instead of writing 0 and 1 or 1 and 2, right? So I represent the start and the end, right? Now the question here is, once again, you can write this in the comment section, and then at the end of the video, you can compare and understand what exactly you've written. Does this investment income represent the investment income of reserve? And by investment income on reserve, I mean the investment income on the asset held against the reserve. Reserve is a liability; it cannot create anything positive, right? It cannot create investment income. So that is where, whenever we are saying investment income on reserve, it represents the asset held and the investment income on that, right? So does this investment income represent the investment income of reserve, right? So what is your answer here, right? So that answer you need to write in the comment section maybe, and then check that with the the final result at the end of this video, right? So moving on. So now this is where it gets interesting, that investment income actually has two components, right? And that is where people get confused with this. So one is obviously the reserve component that you have already understood, right? And that we held asset against reserve, and that generate investment income. The other is based on this concept, which is profit. Whenever profit, we are calculating profit, it is always a movement from T minus one to T. Profit is denoted by income statement, and that is always the value of that is always determined at the end of the year, right? So you start with some cash flows which is at the start of the year, you bring it to the end of the year through accumulation of interest, right, or through some other method, and then the profit is determined always at the end of the year, right? So that is how it is determined. Profit is for the period, but always determine the point of incidence of profit is the end of the year. So that is something you have to remember and understand, right? And if you have any doubt, obviously you can write that in the comment section as well, right? So the first component of this is what we call cash flow component, and this is arising from the cash flows that are at the start of the year. So start of the year, there are two things: premium minus expense. And by the way, here when I say expense, it also includes commission, right? Commission is also a form of expense, and it is known expense. So I'm not writing commission separately; that is included in this expense. So the premium and the expense that is arising along with premium, which primary example will be commission, right? So whenever you pay a premium, a portion of it goes for the distributor, renewal commission, initial commission. Initial commission is usually higher, right? So that is, and there can be some other expense as well, right, at the start of the year. So premium minus those expenses, that is the cash flow. Premium usually would be higher, right? That will generate some investment income. So premium minus expense into whatever investment income, because you are not keeping that money with you, you are putting that money once again into some asset, right? So that is generating one investment income. That is what I call the cash flow component, right? So that is one component. The second component is arising from this reserve or change in reserve, equation, which is reserve at T minus 1 into I. So the reserve, which is at the start of there, that is also going to capture some interest, right? That, like we have mentioned. And then the reserve itself, reserve T minus 1. So basically, reserve T minus 1 into 1 plus I is represented by this two, right? Reserve T minus 1 into 1 plus I. If you just take the reserve T minus 1 common out of it, then it will be reserve T minus 1 into 1 plus I, right? So that means reserve at the start of the year is brought to the end of the year. Like I mentioned, anything in the profit equation is at the final calculation would happen at the end of the year. So anything that is happening at the start, right? Even in the premium and expense, it was happening at the start and is brought to the end of the year, right? And similarly, here in this case as well, reserve T minus 1 into 1 plus I. That means the reserve is brought to the end of the year, right? So that is how every profit related calculation happen. And then this reserve is T, which is change, which represent the change in the reserve, right? So this usually would be higher than this, because many people would be in force here and those people would die, right? So that is why this will be this one would be lower, but of course some new business would also come in. So then there might be a case that this one is also higher, right? So both the possibilities exist, but usually reserve at T minus one would be usually higher than reserve at T, right? So that is how it works, right? But the reverse can also happen if there is more new business, right? Especially for a growing company, this might be, this reserve T might be higher. So that would be a negative figure, right? So that will reduce the profit because you have to keep reserve for those, new policies as well. So insurance business is the only business where when you write something, when you write new business, right, it is detrimental to the company if you are, reserving on prudent basis. These days, with the advent of best estimate, that is, that is a separate thing. We have already discussed that in Sparkle 1 course. If you have studied Sparkle 1, probably that is already clear to you. But best estimate basis, reserve will not create any initial strain. But on prudent basis, reserve will create initial strain. And that is where if more business come, then it is actually painful for the shareholder, less profit, right? So that is how it works. So in any case, here the fundamental is we are kind of taking the reserve at T minus one to the end of the year, right, to calculate the profit. So it depends on the change in reserve formula, right? Whatever you write in the change in reserve. And that is where, like, I'll give you a new formula. If you remember it in that manner, right? So then you will always, you never forget this concept, right? So the question initially was, does this investment income consist of the investment income of reserve? Yes, that is true, right? But it also consists of the cash flow component, which is premium minus expense into the investment income, right, into I. So both the component are captured in this investment income, because here change in reserve is defined as reserve T minus 1 minus reserve T. That reserve T minus 1 into I component is missing here, right? So if that component would be included in change in reserve here, right? So then this investment income would only be the cash flow component, and it would not have any reserve component. But because that component is missing, so then they here will assume that investment income consists of both the cash flow component and the reserve component. And that is where, when we ask this question, does this investment income represent the investment component on reserve? Yes, it does, right? Because otherwise, change in reserve would consist of the investment component on reserve, right? So, like I mentioned, I'll give you a formula which 100% will help you to understand this concept, that is premium minus expense. And this expense, as I mentioned, is happening at the start of the year, right? So when each cash flow is occurring is very important in calculating the profit. So premium minus expense into I, this is the cash flow component, right? And actually it should be, it should be 1 plus I, right? In this case it should be 1 plus I. Have not given I, so just ignore that. It should be 1 plus I, right? Just correct the formula. Maybe I can correct the formula. We added, so this means that premium minus expense, that is one component, plus premium minus expense into I, that is another component which represents the cash flow component, right? And then minus expense, this is the T figure. T figure means this expense are arising at the end of the year. Whenever we have written T figure in this presentation, that means it is occurring at the end of the year. So that need not accumulate any interest, right? Because it's already occurring at the end of the year. And then benefit outgoes, usually it is assumed that it is also occurring at the end of the year, right? If it is not occurring at the end of the year, then this benefit outgo also captures some investment income, but that is the negative of investment income, right? So when that will increase the benefit, so that will actually reduce the investment income, right? So, but here I have assumed that that is also occurring at T, at time point T, right? And then this is reserve T minus 1 minus reserve T minus 1 into I, which is the reserve component plus reserve T, right? So this is the redefined or new change in reserve formula. So change in reserve can consist of the investment component. Change in reserve may not consist of the investment component. If the change in reserve consists of the investment component, then this I, like in the gross profit equation, that only represents the cash flow component. But if the change in reserve do not consist of the reserve component, then the I is a mixture of both the cash flow component and reserve component, right? So I always remember this formula in this manner. So that will always help me to, kind of understand the concept and not get confused with this, right? So I hope that you are now clear on what exactly you mean by investment income, right? How it is being generated, and and what are the two components that contribute to the investment income. So if you are seeing this video and then if you are going to an interview, nobody can stop you in at least explaining what is investment income, right? And then this investment income that you generate on the reserve, that is also related to the discounting, especially in IFRS 4, not in IFRS 17, but in IFRS 4, it is also related to that, right? I have made a couple of videos on that as well previously, and that these are also part of our Sparkle 1 course, right? So that is why I told you that how important it is for you to understand Sparkle 1. If all these concepts are not clear to you, if you have gone and understood the Sparkle 1, and then all these concepts will be very, very clear to you. So with that, I close this video. Thanks for watching this video. Please do write any confusion or anything like I mentioned at the start of the video. Like if you want to comment and then see what is the real answer, then please do that. I would love to see how you are understanding and commenting. The problem that I see in today's generation is they are not willing to learn. They are just taking the shortcut of passing the exam and showing that off in social media. And unfortunately, that will not make you a good actuary. And that will make you a below average actually. In fact, even if you clear the exam, right? And then after that, you struggle in the job, which is what we are observing. Many companies, even in my company as well, I'm thinking of whenever we are going to hire, we are going to have some aptitude test because we cannot just believe the quality of the actual student, and that is going to happen in all companies sooner or later. So be prepared for that, right? It is only going to get harder for you, but of course if you have good concept, this profession will pay you more than what you have imagined. But if you do not have that concept, right, if you are still watching the podcast where people are saying and coming and saying ridiculous stuff, and spreading false information which is not real, and who have not been in the system, even not led a team, and they are coming for podcast, that is unfortunate. And if you are getting motivated by that, it's up to you, right? Because ultimately it is you who is going to take your career up or down. It depends on you. The power lies with you. It is up to you to make good use of that power. I'll see you in future videos.